Hi, and thanks for joining us at Phacilitate Talks. I'm Michael Adenia, Portfolio Director at Phacilitate.
And I'm Anthony Davies, Founder and Chief Executive of Dark Horse Consulting.
And if you're joining us for the first time, Phacilitate Talks is a socially distanced talk show for the Advanced Therapies community, where Anthony and I are joined by two guests to discuss the big issues that the cell and gene therapy industry is dealing with right now. This is a special episode where we've got Anthony and I are actually not going to be doing the talking. It's the first in the series of a Women in Advanced Therapies episodes where we'll be featuring inspirational women leaders within the advanced therapies community. And just to give you a quick bit of context around the Women in Advanced Therapies group, Phacilitate, along with a number of inspirational people within the sector, we founded this group really to provide mentoring, networking, and education for the next generation of women in the field. And this year, we actually released an ebook on International Women's Day, which featured some of the influential women within our sector. And that ebook has just been a standout success. I mean, it's probably the most downloaded piece of content from the Phacilitate website. And off the back of that, we just felt a need to really just go a little bit deeper than the 10 to 12 pages of that ebook. And the ambassadors that work with me suggested that, why don't you use the platform Phacilitate Talks to actually have conversations with them? So we reached out to all of the women that featured in that ebook. And I'm really pleased that, Anthony, you're going to love it. Over the next 3 or 4 weeks, we got some brilliant interviews. Ran Zeng, the CTO of Orchard Therapeutics, Maria Fardis, the CEO of Iovance, Emily Whitehead, just to name a few. And the first episode, though, we've got someone that I know you know very well, Anthony, Claudia Zylberberg.
Yes, I'm really looking forward to this. Obviously, everybody knows Claudia. She has built Akron Biotech from ground level upwards. Akron Biotech, not a therapeutics company, but neither are the companies that you work for, Michael, or that I work for. And I think what comes through from Claudia is that she really has always sought to serve the cell therapy community, and you and I certainly agree with that motivation. It's an ancillary materials company, raw materials, but raw materials in this field, as everybody knows, are unbelievably complex and just as demanding as making therapeutics in many ways. Claudia, as a person, is also highly inspirational, and as I think you were about to say, Michael, she's also equally dedicated to the concept of education.
That's right, yeah. Education is something that comes through from Claudia in every interaction you have with her. And as you say, that's one of the reasons why she does so well speaking at Phacilitate Conference and has been involved in panels with us for many, many years. But that doesn't just run through in terms of talking about the science. I know nothing about science, for example, but in terms of educating the next generation, that for me, like when I first found out that she wrote a children's book all those many years ago, it just made so much sense. And I'm so pleased that I managed to actually urge Claudia to accelerate the re-release of that ebook, of this children's book. I've got a copy of it here, just surprisingly well placed.
As do we both.
You're Full of Genes. And she was able to get that ebook re-released at the start of this year, just in time for the Future of Medicine Public Day that Phacilitate hosted at the Frost Science Museum in Miami. So, and that actually kind of sort of segues nicely into the guest interviewer, which is Jennifer Manning. And Jennifer Manning is an executive director at Fujifilm Diosynth Biotechnologies. And again, another organization that is a serving organization for the cell and gene therapy community, but also a big educator of the next generation. And what I'll do in the show notes for this episode, I'll include some of the resources that Fujifilm have done for the advanced therapies, for actually children, and especially during lockdown, and parents that are trying to be full-time educators as well as disciplinarians and as well as doing their own jobs. And they create these fantastic resources for you and I and parents all over the world to be able to interact with their kids and talk about science. So I'll include notes to that I'll include a link to that in the show notes, and I'll also include a link to Claudia Zylberberg as well. So, look, without further ado, I'm gonna roll on into the interview. I think you're gonna really love it. I found it's a very different kind of conversation from what I'm used to in terms of these organizations, and it's very much a sort of inspirational perspective that I think you can enjoy very much so. So without further ado, let's jump straight into that interview.
Hi, Claudia.
Hey, hi, Jennifer.
Thank you so much for joining me today for the first podcast in a new series of Phacilitate Talks.
Wonderful. Nice to be here and nice to join you with that. Actually, looking forward to it.
Likewise. Well, we have great discussion ahead of us for our viewers, and I really just like to jump right into it and talk a little bit about your passion for educating the next generation. You and I had the opportunity to first meet at the Phacilitate conference in January, where I had the opportunity to listen to you read your children's book, You're Full of Genes. So I really just like to learn more about you and your passions and your drivers for the inspiration of this children's book.
Actually, well, thank you. Thank you for being there. Actually, it was a good way to meet you for the first time, and it was an interesting experience. You're Full of Genes is a project that has been a passion of mine for the longest time. The first edition of the book came along a few years back, about 8 years ago or 9 years ago, with the idea to educate children on genetics and gene editing and what is this all about, the world that was going to come ahead of them. It was a great experience to write the book, to look for an illustrator, but at the end of the day, my main objective was to be able to create a new generation of educated new customers, patients, that will come in the future, that will learn about these possibilities and these options that they have ahead. But also as well, maybe perhaps giving the opportunity for some children to be more curious about new careers and new opportunities in this field that actually at that time was just initially up and coming and now is full blown. So actually the book it's a labor of love. I love education for the longest time, being in the educational field as a side path for me, in science museums, in science workshops that I did for children, science fairs. I always believe that educating science is a best way to create a new generation moving forward.
Thank you for that. I definitely enjoyed it, and my children did as well. So thank you.
Yeah.
When you and I were preparing for this interview, you shared something with me that really hit home, and I thought was really interesting. And you shared that it wasn't just about the importance of uniqueness in everyone from a scientific perspective, but also from a social perspective. And I think that is very accurate in this day and age, and what you're trying to communicate and share with the next generation is so important. So thank you very much. When we were talking and Phacilitate, as well as in our preparation for today, you clearly have a passion for corporate responsibility. Mm-hmm. And you mentioned sustainability as something that's very important to you, and you mentioned that your passion stems from when you got your PhD studying trees, and now you're studying genes. And what I thought was really interesting was your journey. And maybe if you could just share with the viewers your journey from when you were a student and when you were studying the completion of your PhD, and what motivated you not only to study trees, but how did you end up in gene therapy?
Yeah, well, interesting. I work in my PhD actually in wood. I was in the University of British Columbia. I was doing my PhD training there on pulp and paper, and the idea was to generate antibodies to be able to catch the infection of those trees that could be stained and could be with that lower the price of the wood or what have you for different uses, and use a lot of chlorine in order to get rid of the stains. So the idea was to detect very early on the stains of that fungi. And that was part of the work that I did at that time, recreation of monoclonal antibodies for detection. But the interesting thing is that for me, bringing the trees and bringing down the trees to make paper was something that bothered me quite a bit. So actually, later on in life, I was very involved in One Tree Planted and planting trees whenever was the opportunity to do so, and for different fires. And we brought it actually as part of the culture of Akron to bring trees as part of our giving back to Earth in terms of our corporate responsibility. So if it were fires in the Amazon, in California, or even in Australia, we were participating as a company on that sense. But eventually we're understanding the genetics of the trees and how to make it more better for the environment, and better species that can combat the different diseases was something that was of interest to me. And after that, was just translated that to humans, and understanding that could be something that humans can take advantage of. Definitely brought that passion, transfer that passion from nature to the human nature, and was a transition for me. And Akron has been involved in many different ways in that field, and we are looking forward to be contributing even more so these therapies can happen and can bring more opportunities for longer and better lives for lots of patients and people in the world. That's our main goal and mantra.
Thank you. I mean, the passion that you have as a leader in advanced therapies for educating the next generation and making sure that that generation has a planet that's can sustain itself, and that we can play an active role in protecting for the next generation is truly admirable. So thank you to everyone at Akron for contributing to make the planet a better place.
Yeah, you need to contribute from different levels. It's either by educating the new generation, by giving back to the community, by giving back to the place you live. And so we feel that we are so lucky to have all of these different things, that just giving a little bit back, if everyone does a little bit of that, can be a major contribution.
Absolutely. And it could be a best practice. In our industry, there's a lot of consumables and raw materials, and to have this as a best practice that others can pick up on, I think is truly leading by example. And you mentioned, the importance to you as leader of keeping your finger on the pulse and what's going on in the community and in the industry. And over time, how your organization has grown from, a smaller company at a smaller pace to a larger company at a faster pace, and, keeping in line with the growth of the advanced therapies industry. So thank you for sharing, and thank you for being a leader in this space. The last bit that I wanted to ask you about is, I know something that's near and dear to your heart as a parent of a graduating senior this year. Congratulations.
Thank you.
If you had some time to be able to speak to the class of 2020, what would be your advice for them?
These are interesting times that we are living between COVID-19, a lot of revolution and a lot of different streams of different thinking that is going on right now. And I believe that these are times for change, a time to be disruptive and bring different new ideas. Perhaps whatever was common sense in the past, now it's time for a change. And so be open, be ready for create that change you want to see in the world. This is a unique opportunity. These types of moments are unique and happens once in a while, where everything seems to be convoluted in crisis. Those are the times where people understand what the needs are and create new solutions. So this is the best time to shine and bring the best of the humanity and the best in terms of creativity for new solutions for problems that we all have around us. So definitely stay positive, believe in the change, and use this time to be creative and use everything that you have, because those are the times to be successful, although it doesn't seem like, because everything is so weird right now. But the truth is, these are the times where solutions are coming. When problems exist, we are forced to think on solutions for things to happen and change.
Absolutely. And I think that is amazing advice for our graduating seniors, but for everyone right now in the world. And I do think that, the mantra that you shared with me of, be the change that you want to see in the world, you and your organization are absolutely doing that. And I know that this is what you're telling your own children. And I appreciate you sharing this advice with the class of 2020 and with all of our viewers. And, my grandmother used to say, it's pretty simple, just have courage and be kind. And I think that,
that's true.
It's 4 words: have courage and be kind, and that message is very powerful right now. And along with be the change you want to see in the world from you, I think that our graduating class of 2020, they do have challenges ahead of them, and hopefully they use this time to be inspired and be future leaders. So I just thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure getting to know you throughout this process, and I hope our viewers enjoyed the first podcast of Phacilitate Talks.
Thank you. Thank you, Jennifer. It was amazing to meet you actually through this opportunity and know you a little bit more. And definitely this is a great way to get connected now that we are all in a virtual world, and bring a little bit of piece of each one of us anyway.
Absolutely. Well, I look forward to staying connected with you and learning from you and watching Akron do great things.
Thank you. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you. Have a great rest of the day.
You too.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
So yeah, there you have it. Interview with Jennifer Manning and Claudia Zylberberg at Akron Biotech. And I don't know how you feel about that, Anthony, but from my perspective, I feel that was a really profound interview, and it was a lot deeper than I was expecting.
Yes, that was not the normal style of interview you expect, that's science and medicine focused alone. And I think it's good timing, Michael. I think we're living through times of great change, some voluntary, some involuntary. We're living through a pandemic, and we're living through events which perhaps, if nothing else, show that social change, which is long overdue, might actually happen. And I think that is something which none of us can ignore.
Yeah, well, from my perspective, thinking specifically about the revolution that we're seeing right now in the Black Lives Matters movement, it does make me think about, from the position that I hold at Phacilitate, what can we do in order to help drive that change? I think Claudia's point, when Jennifer asked, your message to the class of 2020, and that message of change to the class of 2020, yes, it's obviously a very, very pertinent time for them to be the drivers of that. But I absolutely agree with Jennifer that we've all got a responsibility to take on that right now. And the Phacilitate team are thinking, where do we sit in that? How can we be better in serving the advanced therapies community and representing Black and ethnic minorities better? What does that mean to our speaker panels? What does that mean to how we make our events accessible to minorities? And I'd love to hear from viewers and listeners, what their thoughts and perspectives are on that as well. And is there something that we can collectively do to be better?
Yeah, and I think the point is, Michael, that with all of these movements afoot, ultimately it will be better. And it's nothing but a good thing in the medium and long term. With both of the things we're living through, there may be some short-term pain and some short-term hiccups. But I think in the end, we have to come through out the other side, better.
Oh, totally agree. So we're going to wrap up there. That's the end of this episode. But last point from me. So just to give you a piece of content to enjoy, following on from this, if you would like to, we've managed to package together all of the Super Plenary videos from the last couple of years where Anthony has obviously been chairing and moderating. And we put them together in a really nice Netflix style series of videos that you can check out on the Phacilitate Exchange website. And created a short link for that. So if you just go to bit.ly/superplen2020, you'll be able to get all of those videos and can watch and can stream those online. So that's bit.ly/superplen2020. And that's all for this week, guys. So thank you very much, Anthony. It's always a pleasure catching up with you. And yeah, we'll see you again in a couple of weeks.
Thank you, Michael.
Take care, guys.